Ho ho ho, everybody! This is Tyler here once again from the Character Workshop. And if you couldn't tell from the hats, and, well, it's daytime outside, so you wouldn't tell very well, but the green light that I have in my room right now, 'tis the season to be jolly. It's Christmas time. And for this year, for A Cave from England, I'm gonna do something pretty simple for this year. Since we're back to doing regular episodes, because last year, the show was on hiatus because at the time I was waiting for the Season 2 box set of Doctor Who to come out for me to review some of Season 2 for Season 7. But anyways, since we're not back to doing regular episodes, this will be like kind of a smaller related Christmas special this time around. Well, not really a special, it's more of a episode per se. But anyways, today we're going to be talking about a Christmas episode of a show that I haven't talked about in a very long time. This was the second topic I ever did for A Cave from England. We're going to be taking a look at the Christmas episode of Mr. Bean, which is simply titled, Merry Christmas, Mr. Bean. So this episode is split into two parts. The first part is where Mr. Bean is out in town, and the second part is where he's at home. For now, we're going to be talking about part one of this special. So, Mr. Bean, on Christmas Eve, goes to a very luxurious store in the UK called Harrods, I think is how you pronounce it, where he goes to buy decorations, most notably Christmas lights and ornaments, which, funny enough, with the ornaments, he got one and he tested to see like which one was able to bounce, and after realizing that one of them bounced and one of them broke as he dropped it, he took the one that bounced. And for Christmas lights, he actually unplugged the Christmas lights of the store itself to test out his lights while nobody was looking. And funny enough, when you actually... Sorry about that. When you see Mr. Bean unplugging the store lights, the outside lights of the store like just go off. And after finding out that they work, you know, Mr. Bean decides to buy the ornaments and the lights. And while the cashier, you know, sorts through his purchases, he uses a nativity display and kind of like, you know, plays with it a bit, does like a very humorous scene with them, which, you know, his, as he plays with them, you know, he has like them doing random stuff, and he also has like other figures coming in, like a bunch of sheep, a sheepdog, a sheep herder, battle tanks, a T-Rex, even a Dalek was even a toy that he was using. And after a while when he was playing, you see like a police toy coming up, and you hear a voice going, and Mr. Bean looks and he's like, what? Realizes that it's the store manager, and he hands Mr. Bean his bag of items, and Mr. Bean then leaves the store. Later on, he looks around the Christmas market, and he meets his girlfriend, Irma, and she drags Mr. Bean to a jewelry store and tries to point to the ring that she wants him to get her for Christmas. However, we'll see if he actually bought her the ring when we talk about part 2. But I'm not gonna, say anything right now, but you'll find out. And then in the last portion of the town portion of this special, he volunteers to help a music conductor of a brass band of the Salvation Army to collect money. And in doing so, he catches basically a boy who was like stealing money and jewelry from like other people, and he forces the boy to hand him over to him. And basically he ends up giving the stuff to the conductor, and then while the conductor's like, you know, putting everything in his car, he gives Mr. Bean the stick to like conduct the musicians, and like while Mr. Bean is like, you know, moving the stick, they actually like play the music as he's like moving the stick around. And that whole scene in particular is like besides the nativity scene, it's probably like the funniest scene from the town portion of this special. And to finish out part 1 of this special, he goes to try to get a Christmas tree, however, the place he was trying to get them sold out. So what he did instead is he decided to steal the town's giant Christmas tree, and took it back to his house. Which is where we get into part 2 of this special. And while he's at home, he prepares for Christmas Eve by setting up, you know, the Christmas tree, which, by the way, seeing that the tree was so big, he actually like cut a portion of it off just to fit into his apartment, while the actual rest of the tree itself was outside of his apartment. And then while he's like decorating his house and getting everything ready for Christmas, he then like seals an envelope and, you know, makes like several Christmas cards, and he like, you know, gets out of his apartment and then puts them through the mail slot in his door, comes out, acts surprised, like, ooh, somebody gave me Christmas cards, and he like proceeds to like open them up. Not sure why he did that, but you know, this is Mr. Bean we're talking about, so I shouldn't be that surprised. And then he looks through his closet and he goes across a box of Christmas crackers. Now, for any of my American fans, which is like a majority of you, who don't really know the tradition of Christmas crackers, basically, this is a tradition that basically involves usually a person or two people basically like grabbing this like wrapped up decoration, and they pull them together to like get whatever's inside there out, which usually either contains like a small gift, a paper hat, or some kind of joke. It's a very big Christmas tradition that's often celebrated in like UK, Ireland, and you know, a few other countries like Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and South Africa. But anyways, as Mr. Bean gets his Christmas crackers out, and after failing to pop one of them, he then decides to take all the fuses out of his other Christmas crackers and put them all into one. And later on, he then hangs up, you know, 3 Christmas stockings, one for himself, one for his teddy bear Teddy, and then one for a mouse that's living in a hole near his house. And then as he's like getting ready to go to bed, a group of young carolers then come to his door and sing a Christmas carol, and he like turns his chair over and like kind of watches them for a bit, and then eventually grows tired and then like shuts the door on them as they were continuing singing, and then eventually heads to bed. And then Christmas Day comes around. Mr. Bean wakes up and then proceeds to take out the stockings, and he pulls out his presents. And basically for the presents, he got himself another sock to match with the other sock that he was using as his own stocking. And then his present for Teddy was giving him like a pair of golden eyes to like sew into his face. And for the mouse, he gave like got a piece of cheese for the mouse before putting it into a trap. So there's that. And then he prepares to cook a massive turkey that he has. But while he was stuffing the turkey, he manages to lose his watch as he was stuffing it. And while trying to get his watch out, he then eventually sticks his head into the turkey, but then couldn't get his head out of the turkey, so he was just stuck with a turkey on his head for a bit. And while this happened, his girlfriend rings the doorbell, basically coming in because, you know, I guess they were going to spend Christmas Day together. And as he fails to, like, you know, kind of hide his the turkey that he has on his head, Irma then eventually like helps Mr. Bean get the turkey out by having like a coal scuttle tied to it, and like, you know, throws it out the window, leading the turkey to come off of Mr. Bean's head. And Mr. Bean eventually gets his watch back. And to end things off, we have the dinner scene where basically Mr. Bean and Irma were having dinner, and she gives Mr. Bean a model ship as a present, and Mr. Bean then gives Irma her present, but she was disappointed to find out that rather than giving her a ring, Mr. Bean gave her a photograph that was actually right near the ring that she wanted him to get. And she started to cry, and Mr. Bean realizing that he's like, oh, I forgot the main bit. And then he pulls out a ring box, which then made Irma happy for a bit. And then when she opens the box, she discovers that what was supposed to be a ring, or what she thought was going to be a ring, was actually just a hook that Mr. Bean wanted for her to, like, you know, hang the picture with. And then before Mr. Bean was able to, like, you know, test it out, she immediately leaves. And Mr. Bean, you know, was kind of confused and upset that she didn't like it. And then afterwards he remembers the cracker that he was planning on having him and her like pull together. But seeing that she left him, he decided to pull it himself, says one last line, Merry Christmas, Mr. Bean, pulls the cracker, leading to a loud explosion in his apartment, ending the episode. So there you go. That was basically the plots of Merry Christmas, Mr. Bean. Definitely one of my favorite Christmas episodes of a lot of TV shows that I've watched over the years. This is one that I tend to go back to, every now and then, each Christmas. And a lot of the stuff in there still cracks me up to this day. Like I mentioned before, the nativity scene where he was playing with the figures and stuff. Especially the gag with the store clerk coming in with the policeman going, which even to this day, I don't know why it still makes me laugh. In addition, also, I don't have much else to say. It's really hilarious through and through. And of course, the turkey portion that I mentioned earlier, actually ended up being somewhat influential because it would be used in some later productions. Like, for example, it later led to the turkey scene kind of being used again in the first Mr. Bean movie, which was simply titled Bean. And of course was later used in an episode of Mr. Bean the Animated Series titled Dinner for Two. And outside of Mr. Bean, the American sitcom Friends, I'll Be There For You, that show. In the episode, the one with all the Thanksgivings, actually had a very similar scene where one of the characters, I don't really recall who it was, but ended up getting a turkey on their head in a similar way that Mr. Bean got a turkey on his head. So there's that. And a few other pieces of trivia I gotta mention about this episode. The scene where Mr. Bean was playing with the nativity sets. There was a portion where, there was kind of a military band marching through, and while it was going on, Mr. Bean was humming the British Grenadiers, which was basically the same piece of music that was used as the theme song for Blackadder Goes Forth, which, of course was another TV show that Rowan Atkinson was a part of, which I've talked about in the past. And then one other major detail I want to mention, this episode has a deleted scene that is not shown in a lot of versions of the episode. Apparently, it was cut out of the broadcast for some reason, but it has been, featured in a lot of home media releases for this episode. But in a deleted scene, which actually kind of shows how Mr. Bean got the turkey to begin with, he attempts to win the turkey that was being held as a contest at a store, where basically you had to guess the turkey's weight, and if you got it right, you get the turkey. And Mr. Bean, in order to get the exact number right, he sneaks a pair of scales into the counter, and he stands up on it while having the turkey in his hands, and then he gives the turkey back to the store owner, looks at his scale, calculates real quick just to figure out the exact weight, and got it right to the store owner's surprise. Not the store owner, the employee's surprise. And they were pretty shocked when they saw it, and then they, gave the turkey to Mr. Bean, and that was it. It was a pretty short scene. It was only a minute and a half long, but it was pretty hilarious, and it's honestly kind of disappointing that this was not in the broadcast version of this episode. But you can still find it on YouTube. So, and it's also on home media as well. So, thankfully this scene hasn't been, lost in time, thankfully. And one other detail I gotta point out that I think is kind of interesting. This episode had Mr. Bean's girlfriend in it, who's really the only other human character who's appeared more than once in the series. Her other appearances beforehand was The Curse of Mr. Bean, and I'm trying to remember what the other episode was. It was episode 5. I'm trying to exactly remember what it was called. I think it was The Trouble with Mr. Bean, I believe. But I could be wrong. Actually, no, it's Mr. Bean Goes to Town. Sorry. I'm getting my Mr. Bean episodes confused. But yeah, Merry Christmas, Mr. Bean was her third and final appearance in the live-action Mr. Bean series, which I think is kind of a very fitting, end to that character, because she literally left Mr. Bean after kind of a miscommunication between, what she wanted for Christmas and what Mr. Bean thought she wanted for Christmas. But yeah, she was never seen again in the live-action series. Of course, she would later appear in the animated series as a character, so her Irma as a character is still there in some format. But that's the only other piece of information I wanted to, bring up. But yeah, as I said, Merry Christmas, Mr. Bean really funny Christmas episode. If you want to watch, if you want a half hour just to, like, you know, laugh and enjoy some Christmas goodness, take a look at Merry Christmas, Mr. Bean. I'm sure you won't be disappointed. But with that being said, that's about it for this episode of It Came From England. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more episodes of It Came From England, or just mediocre plush content in general. I'm realizing I'm stuttering a lot in my outros nowadays. Be sure to turn on a notification bell so you get notified each time I upload a new episode of It Came From England or any of my other shows. Leave a comment down below, let me know what you think. That is about it. This is Tyler from the Character Workshop, signing out. Hope you guys all have a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. And when we eventually return to It Came From England, probably next year, who knows. But next time, we're going to go back into the world of Modern Who by talking about arguably the most popular and most favorites of the modern series Doctors.